The park was alive with the gentle hum of early morning activity. Children ran across the open fields, their laughter ringing like little bells through the air. Birds hopped along the branches, chirping softly as if trying to keep up with the rhythm of the city around them. People strolled along the pathways, some holding coffee cups, others walking dogs on leashes, and a few simply sitting on benches, enjoying the quiet moments before the city fully woke. It was one of those mornings when everything felt calm yet full of subtle energy, the kind of morning that made people pause, even for a few seconds, to notice life happening around them. In the center of the park, a grand piano had been set up near a fountain. Its polished surface gleamed under the soft sunlight, reflecting the water droplets that danced lightly in the air. It was not unusual for the park to host performances, but this particular morning had attracted more people than usual. The crowd had gathered around, forming a loose circle, murmuring in quiet excitement. Everyone seemed to sense that something special was about to happen. A man stood beside the piano, adjusting the stool and smiling at the audience. He was tall and lean, dressed in a simple yet elegant outfit that suggested both comfort and style. His hands, long and nimble, hovered over the keys with a sense of familiarity and care. There was a quiet confidence in the way he moved, not the arrogance of someone who wanted to show off, but the calm assurance of a person who had spent a lifetime perfecting his art. As he sat down, a hush fell over the crowd, a collective breath, held in anticipation. From the edge of the crowd, a woman watched quietly. She was dressed plainly, wearing a simple blouse and a long skirt. Her hair was tied back neatly, and her hands were folded loosely in front of her. She didn't push forward like some of the other spectators. She simply stood, observing, her eyes tracing every movement of the pianist. There was something about her calm presence that seemed to go unnoticed at first, blending into the crowd, yet her gaze was steady, attentive, almost magnetic in its quiet focus. She wasn't there to seek attention or impress anyone. She was simply there, present, watching the unfolding scene with a sense of curiosity and wonder. The pianist began to play, and the first notes floated through the morning air. They were delicate, soft, and precise, yet carried a warmth that seemed to touch everyone's hearts. The music swelled and fell, rising in intensity before gently retreating, like waves caressing a quiet shore. People in the crowd leaned closer, captivated by the sound. Even the children paused, caught by the melody, their playful chatter fading into silence. The notes seemed to carry stories without words, emotions without explanation. There was joy. There was longing. There was a gentle sadness that somehow felt comforting rather than sorrowful. The woman's eyes followed the pianist's hands as they moved across the keys. There was a fluidity in his movements, a language spoken without words. Each finger seemed to know exactly where it needed to be, each chord blending seamlessly into the next. She had never seen such skill up close, never experienced the energy of a performance that felt both intimate and grand at the same time. Her heart beat a little faster, not out of fear or excitement, but out of the pure appreciation of witnessing something beautiful, something rare. The crowd was fully absorbed, now leaning in as the music rose to a gentle crescendo. The pianist's eyes closed for a moment, and for a brief second, it felt as though the world had paused, leaving only the music and the people who were listening. Even the wind seemed to slow, the rustling leaves quieting to let the notes carry. Unhindered, the fountain's water shimmered under the sunlight, catching and reflecting the delicate sound in an almost magical way. Everything seemed aligned, as if the morning itself had conspired to create a perfect space for this moment. As the final notes lingered in the air, fading softly, the pianist opened his eyes and smiled, a small knowing smile that seemed to acknowledge the shared experience with everyone present. The crowd applauded, not loudly at first, but gradually their claps building in rhythm with the echo of the last melody. Some stood, others remained seated, but all faces showed a kind of wonder, a recognition that they had just witnessed something remarkable. Then, almost casually, the pianist looked toward the woman standing quietly at the edge of the crowd. There was a playful spark in his eyes as he gestured toward the piano, a silent invitation, or perhaps a gentle challenge. The crowd noticed the exchange, curiosity rippling through them. A murmur passed among the spectators as they tried to guess what would happen next. The pianist's smile widened, and he spoke, his voice carrying clearly over the soft sounds of the park, though without any harshness. "Would you like to try?" he asked, his tone light, teasing even. It was a simple question, yet it held an undercurrent of challenge, a playful test of confidence. The crowd's eyes shifted to the woman, waiting for her reaction. Some expected a polite decline, a shy refusal that would bring a small chuckle or nod from the pianist. Others wondered if she would simply turn away, uninterested in stepping into a world she clearly hadn't trained for. But the woman did not step back. Instead, she met his gaze steadily, her eyes calm and thoughtful. A small smile played on her lips, subtle but genuine. She tilted her head slightly, as if considering the idea for a brief moment, and then, without hesitation, she responded. Her voice was soft yet firm, carrying an honesty that made it impossible for anyone to look away. "I have never played like this before," she said quietly, "but I would like to try." The crowd held its collective breath. The pianist's expression shifted from playful amusement to genuine surprise. He had expected hesitation, perhaps a polite refusal, but not this straightforward, humble courage. The simplicity of her words, the honesty in her tone, seemed to ripple through the air, touching everyone who heard it. There was something remarkably brave in her willingness to step forward into the unknown, something quietly powerful that needed no adornment or flourish. "Lee." Pianist nodded slowly, still smiling, and gestured toward the piano bench. "Please sit," he encouraged. "The keys are ready for you." The woman stepped forward with measured confidence, her movements deliberate but unhurried. She placed her hands on her lap for a moment, taking a deep breath as if gathering herself, before touching the instrument. Then, carefully, she lowered herself onto the bench and extended her fingers toward the keys. The crowd watched in silence, anticipation hanging in the air like the soft morning mist that clung to the park. She touched the keys lightly at first, hesitantly, exploring the smooth surface, feeling the coolness beneath her fingertips. There was no rush, no attempt to impress. She simply allowed herself to connect with the instrument, as though greeting an old friend she had just met. The pianist leaned slightly forward, observing with interest but not interrupting. There was a mutual understanding forming, a silent communication that went beyond words. The music, when it would come, was hers to discover. Around them, the park seemed to hold its breath. People shifted slightly, craning their necks to see better, yet no one made a sound. The usual noises of morning, children's laughter, dogs barking, birds singing, had faded into the background, replaced by a quiet anticipation. Even the fountain seemed to slow its rhythm, the water glistening more vividly, as if it too were waiting for what would come next. The air was thick with curiosity and expectation, the kind that makes every small movement feel significant, every pause meaningful. The woman's eyes moved briefly to the pianist, seeking reassurance. He gave a subtle nod, a gentle acknowledgement that she was ready. Then she focused on the keys again, her fingers poised delicately above them. She didn't strike the first note immediately. She lingered, feeling the potential of the piano, imagining the sounds that might come. It was a quiet moment of connection, intimate, yet shared with everyone present. There was magic in that pause, an unspoken promise that something unexpected was about to unfold, and then very softly she pressed the first key. The note emerged, clear and simple, a single sound that seemed almost hesitant, but it was enough. It was the beginning of something. The crowd leaned forward, sensing the significance of this simple action. The pianist smiled, his eyes widening. Slightly, not with disbelief, but with genuine delight. The challenge had been accepted, and in the most unexpected, unassuming way. For a moment, nothing else mattered. The park, the crowd, the morning, all of it faded into a quiet backdrop for the woman and the piano. She had stepped into the unknown, and though the notes were tentative, the courage and honesty in her actions spoke louder than any skill could. It was a moment of pure human connection, a reminder that sometimes the most remarkable experiences come from the simplest acts. From ordinary people daring to engage with something extraordinary. The first note lingered in the air, delicate yet persistent. The woman paused, feeling the resonance beneath her fingers, sensing the possibilities that lay in the next key, the next sound. And with that, the story of this morning began not with grandeur or fanfare, but with a simple, heartfelt willingness to try to be present and to allow herself to step into a world she had never imagined she could enter. The piano, the music, the anticipation, all awaited her next move, ready to transform a simple morning into a moment that would be remembered by everyone. The woman settled onto the bench, her posture straight but relaxed, her hands hovering over the piano keys. There was a stillness in her movements, a calm focus that seemed to contrast with the excitement in the surrounding crowd. People leaned closer, their curiosity intensifying with every passing second. Some whispered to each other, speculating on what she might play, but most simply watched in quiet anticipation. The pianist stood slightly to the side, his fingers tapping lightly against each other, his expression a mixture of amusement and intrigue. He had challenged many before, yet there was something different about her. She radiated a quiet courage, a willingness to step into the unknown without fear or pretense. The first touch of her fingers on the keys produced a soft, hesitant note. It was clear and simple, without embellishment, yet it filled the air with a sense of possibility. The crowd drew in a collective breath, and for a moment the world seemed to narrow to just the piano and the woman at the bench. The pianist watched closely, his eyes following each movement of her hands. There was no rushing, no attempt to impress, just a slow, deliberate exploration of sound. Each note was a discovery, a tentative step into a world she had never formally entered. As she continued, a few more notes joined the first, forming a small, uneven melody. The sound was gentle and raw, unpolished, yet strangely compelling. There was a sincerity in her playing that spoke to something deeper than technique or practice. It was as if she were expressing a thought or feeling that words could not capture. People in the crowd felt it too. They leaned in, some closing their eyes, letting the music wash over them. It was not perfect in the traditional sense, but it was alive, and that made all the difference. The pianist moved closer, curious to see how far she would take the challenge. His usual audience was often filled with applause, admiration, or polite nods, but there was rarely this kind of anticipation. He watched her pause, then strike another key, letting the sound linger. It was a small, deliberate moment that seemed to stretch time. The crowd held its breath, sensing that something unique was unfolding before their eyes. The woman's focus was complete, her attention entirely on the music and the sensations beneath her fingers. She was discovering the piano, and in that discovery, she revealed something unexpected to everyone watching. The woman began to experiment with combinations of notes, her fingers moving carefully, but with growing confidence. Some notes clashed slightly, some harmonized, but each sound seemed to tell a part of her story. There was a hesitancy in the way she pressed the keys, yet also a quiet determination. The pianist's expression shifted from curiosity to admiration. He had seen countless musicians, many trained from early childhood, yet few approached the instrument with such honesty. She had no formal lessons, no years of disciplined practice, yet her music held a raw emotional power that technical skill alone could never achieve. As the melody developed, the crowd's reaction became more pronounced. Some faces were filled with surprise, others with delight. Whispers of astonishment rippled through the spectators. "She's actually playing something beautiful," one voice murmured. "I didn't expect that," said another. Children watched with wide eyes, captivated by the way the notes danced through the air. Even the birds seemed to pause their songs, as if listening. There was a shared sense of wonder, a recognition that this moment was special, unexpected, and entirely human. The pianist stepped closer, unable to resist the urge to offer a subtle guide. He gently suggested a chord with a nod of his head, a hint of encouragement rather than instruction. The woman acknowledged it with a slight smile, then returned her focus to the keys. There was no need for words between them. Music had become their language, a bridge between experience and emotion. Each note she played seemed to respond naturally to the unspoken rhythm of the moment. It was clear that she was learning not from technique, but from intuition. From the way her hands and heart felt the music, she began to find a rhythm of her own, a series of notes that flowed together with increasing fluidity. The initial hesitation faded, replaced by a quiet confidence. Each chord, each sequence of sounds carried a sense of story, a reflection of the simple yet profound emotions she felt. People in the crowd leaned closer, entranced by the unfolding melody. The pianist's smile broadened, genuine and unguarded, as he watched the transformation. It was rare for him to witness someone so untrained create something that felt alive and moving. There was a magic in it, a reminder of the unpredictability of human talent and spirit. The woman's music began to evoke emotions among the spectators that went beyond surprise. Some felt a gentle sadness, a longing that they could not quite name, while others felt warmth, a sense of comfort in the honesty of her playing. There were no complicated flourishes, no dramatic crescendos, just pure, heartfelt music that resonated deeply. The pianist understood immediately that she had touched something essential. Technique could be taught, practice could refine, but this authenticity was rare and unrepeatable. As the melody continued, the woman started to explore the higher keys, letting her fingers move freely over the piano. The notes became lighter, almost playful, dancing through the air in a soft, sparkling pattern. The crowd reacted with audible delight, small exclamations of surprise and joy spreading through them. Even the air itself seemed to shimmer with her music. The pianist, standing beside her now, allowed himself a rare moment of admiration without interference. She was doing something remarkable, not because of what she knew, but because of what she felt and allowed to emerge. Her confidence grew steadily. Yet she never rushed. Every note was deliberate, chosen with care, reflecting a thought, a feeling, or simply an experiment in sound. The pianist occasionally offered a subtle glance, a nod, a tiny suggestion of harmony, but for the most part, he let her lead. There was a quiet understanding that she was discovering not only the piano, but also her own capacity for expression. The audience sensed it too. They were witnessing a transformation, a simple woman stepping into a new space and making it entirely her own. Time seemed to stretch as she played, the morning passing unnoticed. The sunlight shifted, casting gentle shadows across the keys and her hands, highlighting each movement with a delicate clarity. People forgot about the day ahead, about the errands, the work, the noise of the city. They were present, fully absorbed in the unfolding performance. Even the usual distractions of the park, the barking dogs, the distant traffic, the rustle of leaves felt like they were part of the music, woven seamlessly into the fabric of the moment. The woman experimented with slower, deeper notes, letting them resonate and linger in the air. She moved effortlessly between the low and high registers, exploring the piano's range with natural curiosity. Each sound seemed to reflect her emotions in real time, her thoughts and feelings translating into melody without hesitation. The pianist's respect for her grew with every measure. He could see the purity of her approach, the honesty that no amount of training could instill. It was the kind of artistry that emerged from the heart rather than the mind, and it left a profound impression on him. The crowd, too, began to react in subtle ways. Some swayed gently to the rhythm, others closed their eyes, letting the music fill their minds. There were smiles, nods of approval, and quiet murmurs of amazement. The woman's playing had created a shared experience, a moment of connection between strangers through the language of sound. It was a reminder that music, at its core, was not about perfection or recognition, but about expression and shared humanity. As she reached a particularly poignant sequence, her fingers seemed to find a natural balance between strength and delicacy. The notes intertwined like a conversation, rising and falling in an organic pattern. There was a sense of story, of journey, in her playing. The pianist, who had challenged many, recognized that she had answered in a way that went beyond expectations. It was not about proving skill. It was about embracing the challenge with honesty and heart. He felt a sense of pride and humility, witnessing the courage and talent of someone who had never formally played. Gradually, she brought the melody to a gentle conclusion, letting the final notes linger softly in the air. The silence that followed was not empty but filled with anticipation and admiration. People held their breath for a moment, reluctant to break the spell of the music. Then, slowly, applause began to rise, first tentative, then growing steadily as the crowd expressed their appreciation. It was not a polite clap, but a heartfelt acknowledgement of something extraordinary. The pianist joined in, clapping with genuine delight and respect. The woman smiled softly, her cheeks warm with a mixture of shyness and satisfaction. For a moment, the park seemed to hold its breath, as if acknowledging the unusual and remarkable nature of what had just occurred. People looked at each other, sharing expressions of awe and wonder. The woman had done more than play the piano. She had created a moment that transcended skill and expectation. She had shown courage, honesty, and the beauty of exploring the unknown. The pianist's challenge, playful and lighthearted as it had begun, had become a shared celebration of human potential and expression. And in that moment, everyone present knew they had witnessed something special, a rare and unforgettable encounter that would lead. The woman continued to play, and with every note, the melody began to take on a life of its own. She was no longer hesitating or merely exploring the keys. She had found a rhythm that resonated with her, a flow that seemed to emerge naturally from her feelings. Her hands moved more confidently, yet softly, almost as if they were guided by an invisible thread connecting her emotions directly to the piano. The crowd watched in awe, leaning forward, unable to look away. There was a sense that something extraordinary was unfolding, something beyond expectation or training, a moment that seemed to belong as much to them as to her. The pianist, who had initially stood back with a playful curiosity, now watched with genuine admiration. His usual performances were precise, measured, rehearsed to perfection, but there was a spark in her playing that he could not command or replicate. It was raw, honest, and profoundly human. Each note carried intention, not crafted for applause, but born from a desire to express something deeper. He found himself smiling without thought, caught up in the unexpected beauty of her music. As she moved through the keys, Her melody began to weave between high, delicate notes and deep, resonant tones. It was not a technically perfect composition, but it had something far more compelling: soul. The audience sensed it immediately. Parents with children paused mid-step, dog walkers stopped and turned, and even people passing by from other parts of the park slowed down, drawn by the sound. There was a magnetic quality to her music that could not be ignored. It wasn't just notes. It was a conversation, a story unfolding in real time. The woman's fingers moved with surprising dexterity, gliding over the black and white keys. She discovered harmonies in unexpected places, sometimes pressing two notes together that created a soft, haunting resonance. She explored rhythms that were irregular, yet perfectly suited to the emotion she wished to convey. Her expression was serene, her brow occasionally furrowing, as if concentrating on the feeling rather than the technicality. Every movement, every choice of note, revealed an untrained genius, a natural understanding of how sound could be shaped to tell a story. Some of the audience whispered in disbelief. "I can't believe she's doing this without training," one said softly. "It sounds so real," another added, her voice filled with quiet amazement. Children stared with wide eyes, unable to comprehend why such beauty could come from someone who seemed so ordinary. The park had become a shared space of astonishment and wonder, everyone caught up in a moment that was unplanned and spontaneous. The pianist stepped a little closer, curious how far she would go. He could see her growing in confidence, her hands moving more assuredly, yet her humility remained. She was not playing to show off or prove herself. She was playing because she had allowed herself to feel, and the music was a natural extension of that feeling. It was a rare kind of performance, where the heart guided the fingers more than the mind guided the technique. The pianist felt a twinge of envy, but it was sweetened with admiration. It was a reminder that talent could emerge from unexpected places, that greatness could be found in those who had not sought it not. As she continued, the melody began to shift. The notes became more intricate, though never forced or overdone. They were subtle flourishes, additions that gave texture and depth without breaking the natural flow. Her hands moved with a growing ease, each motion deliberate yet fluid. The pianist watched, his mind noting the subtle creativity in each combination. He recognized the spark of genius, not taught, but intuitive. Every sound she produced seemed intentional, every pause deliberate, every rise and fall expressive. It was artistry born from instinct. The woman paused for a moment, her fingers hovering above the keys. The pause was brief, yet it held weight. She seemed to be listening, feeling the echo of her own music as it reverberated through the park. The audience, sensing the significance of this silence, remained still, waiting. Even the birds seemed quieter, the fountain's water catching the light in a moment of serene beauty. Then she pressed a key, and another, and suddenly the melody transformed. It became brighter, more playful, yet still heartfelt. The contrast between the deep, resonant notes and the light, dancing ones created an emotional richness that surprised everyone. A few people gasped quietly, moved by the depth and honesty of what they were hearing. The pianist, too, could not suppress a small exclamation of admiration. It was as if she had unlocked something hidden, a musical truth that could not be learned from books or lessons. She was discovering a part of herself through the piano, and in doing so, she was revealing it to everyone around her. There was a rare kind of vulnerability in her performance, the kind that demanded attention, not because it was perfect, but because it was real. As the melody progressed, she began experimenting with softer dynamics, pressing the keys gently, letting the sound ebb and flow like a whisper. Her hands seemed to dance lightly across the instrument, each touch precise yet delicate. The notes lingered in the air, weaving around the listeners, drawing them into her musical world. The crowd remained silent, captivated, as if afraid to break the fragile spell she had created. The pianist watched intently, amazed by her ability to convey emotion so purely, without guidance or instruction. The woman began to explore minor chords, producing a bittersweet, almost haunting quality. The music shifted effortlessly, telling a story that felt intimate yet universal. Listeners felt emotions they could not name, memories stirring, hearts softening. The pianist recognized that what made her playing extraordinary was not just the notes, but the honesty behind them. There was no pretense, no showmanship, only the expression of a human heart in sound. It was moving in a way that technique alone could never achieve. People in the crowd began to nod subtly, as if in recognition of her skill and the beauty of the moment. Some closed their eyes, letting the music wash over them completely. The children were silent, listening intently, their curiosity replaced with awe. Even the regulars of the park, who had seen countless performers, seemed spellbound. The woman's playing had created a space where everyone could feel something pure, something shared yet deeply personal. The pianist stepped even closer, his curiosity now fully engaged. He could see the confidence building in her posture, the way her fingers moved with ease and sensitivity. It was clear that she was no longer uncertain or tentative. She had embraced the challenge, not to prove anything, but to explore the instrument and express herself. Every note she played seemed to reveal a layer of her personality, her emotions, and her perception of the world around her. It was deeply human and profoundly moving. The woman's music began to tell a story. There were highs and lows, moments of joy and hints of melancholy. It was a narrative without words, yet everyone could feel it. The pianist realized that she had instinctively understood how to communicate through sound, how to create an emotional journey for her listeners. The melody flowed naturally, with tension and release, peaks and valleys, all woven together seamlessly. It was as though she had discovered a language she did not know she knew, one that spoke directly to the heart. The audience was completely absorbed. Some wiped quiet tears from their eyes, moved by the unexpected depth of feeling. Others smiled, feeling warmth and happiness in the simplicity of her performance. The park had transformed from a mundane morning space into a sanctuary of music and emotion. The fountain's gentle spray, the birds' occasional chirps, the soft rustle of leaves, all seemed to harmonize with her playing. The piano had become an extension of her, and in turn, she had extended herself to everyone present. The woman's hands moved faster now, yet with control. She added small flourishes, experimenting with rhythms and harmonies that enhanced the emotional power of the music. Each choice felt natural, not forced, revealing her intuition and creativity. The pianist nodded in admiration, recognizing that she had taken a challenge meant to amuse into an entirely new realm of artistry. The audience responded instinctively, leaning in, hearts beating slightly faster with every note. She paused briefly, letting a single note resonate fully before continuing. The silence was heavy, yet comforting. It gave weight to her next phrase, making the melody feel alive, breathing. The pianist observed closely, realizing that her performance was no longer just a response to a challenge. It had become a personal expression, a testament to her courage and openness. Her music was not perfect in the conventional sense, but it was perfect in its authenticity. Slowly, she began to bring the melody to a gentle conclusion, intertwining high, delicate notes with deep, resonant ones. The final sequence was soft, almost like a sigh, yet carried a lingering emotional impact. The crowd remained quiet, as if holding on to the moment for as long as possible. When the last note faded into the air, there was a pause, a moment of pure stillness before the audience erupted into applause. It was loud, heartfelt, and spontaneous, a collective acknowledgement of the beauty and sincerity they had witnessed. The pianist stepped forward, clapping with genuine delight and admiration. His eyes met hers, filled with respect and wonder. He had played for countless audiences, but he had rarely experienced a performance like this one that transcended skill and technique, one that spoke to the soul. The woman smiled, a soft blush coloring her cheeks, yet her eyes held a... The woman's hands moved over the keys with increasing confidence, each note flowing into the next in a rhythm that felt both natural and expressive. She had discovered a connection to the piano that went beyond mere playing. It was as if the instrument had become an extension of her own emotions. The melody she created now was richer and deeper than before, layered with subtle shifts in tone and intensity. The crowd, completely absorbed, leaned in, their attention fixed on her every movement, eager to see what she would do next. The pianist, standing a few steps away, could not hide his astonishment. He had played for countless audiences and trained many students, yet he had rarely seen someone approach the piano with such instinctive creativity. She had no formal lessons, no structured knowledge of theory, and yet she could make the keys sing in a way that was deeply moving. There was something undeniably human in her performance, a sense of vulnerability and authenticity that made every note resonate with the listener's heart's dot. As she played, the woman began experimenting with dynamics, alternating between soft, delicate touches and more forceful, resonant chords. The contrast created a sense of tension and release, drawing the audience into the story she was telling through sound. People could feel the music as much as they could hear it. Some closed their eyes, allowing themselves to be swept away by the emotions conveyed in each note. Children stopped moving, captivated by the gentle rise and fall of the melody. Adults shifted closer, leaning in to catch every subtle nuance. The pianist watched in silence, occasionally nodding in approval. He could see that she was not simply pressing keys at random. Each choice was deliberate, guided by intuition rather than formal knowledge. The music was alive, evolving with every movement of her hands, and it carried an honesty that was rare. In trained performers, he felt a mix of admiration and humility, recognizing that the simplicity of her approach had uncovered something he could not command through skill alone. Her melody began to take on a narrative quality. There were moments of lightness, playful sequences that danced across the higher keys, followed by passages of depth and intensity in the lower register. Each shift reflected a different emotion, a different aspect of the story she seemed to be telling. The audience felt the journey as if it were their own, experiencing joy, wonder, and a gentle melancholy in succession. It was not a performance in the traditional sense. It was a living conversation between the pianist, the woman, and the listeners. The woman's expression remained calm and focused. She did not seek applause or attention, but there was a quiet satisfaction in her face, a hint of delight at discovering the possibilities of the piano. Her fingers moved with a growing sense of freedom, exploring combinations of notes that were both unexpected and harmonious. The crowd responded instinctively, leaning closer, their eyes widening with each surprising chord or delicate flourish. Even the birds perched nearby seemed to pause, as though acknowledging the beauty of the moment. At one point, she pressed a series of chords that created a gentle, lingering resonance. The sound filled the park, wrapping around the audience and holding them in a quiet, shared space. There was a softness to the notes, a gentle melancholy that felt both intimate and universal. Some listeners felt a pang of memory, a distant recollection of a long-forgotten moment. Others felt a comforting warmth, a sense of being understood without words. The pianist, standing to the side, could only watch, recognizing the subtle genius in her ability to evoke emotion so naturally. The woman continued to explore the piano's range, moving effortlessly from low, rumbling notes to high, delicate. Tones. Each transition was smooth, guided by intuition rather than instruction. She created patterns that were irregular, yet perfectly suited to the emotions she wished to express. The music was alive, breathing, and the audience could feel it. People exchanged glances, some smiling quietly, others nodding in silent approval. The connection she had formed with the piano extended to everyone around her, creating a sense of unity and shared experience. The pianist, now fully engaged, observed her every movement with keen interest. He could see that she was not simply repeating melodies. She was inventing them, letting the music flow from her heart. There was a delicate balance between spontaneity and control, a subtle mastery that came from listening rather than thinking. Each note was a reflection of her inner world, a personal expression that touched everyone present. He felt a deep respect for her courage and creativity, recognizing that she had taken a playful challenge and transformed it into a powerful demonstration of human potential. As the melody progressed, the woman began to experiment with rhythm, adding gentle pauses and unexpected accents. The result was a musical tapestry that felt both complex and natural, intricate yet approachable. The crowd responded with rapt attention, their senses fully engaged. Some tapped their fingers lightly, keeping time with the subtle beats. Others simply sat in quiet admiration, allowing the music to wash over them. The woman's performance was no longer just a series of notes. It had become an emotional experience, a story that unfolded in real time. The woman paused briefly, letting a single note linger in the air. The silence that followed was powerful, filled with anticipation. The pianist watched closely, sensing that she was preparing for something significant. Then, with a delicate flourish, she resumed, weaving together high, sparkling notes with deeper, resonant chords. The effect was mesmerizing, a dance of sound that captured the hearts of everyone present. There was a sense of light and shadow in the music, of tension and release. That made the performance feel alive, and human. People in the crowd began to respond more visibly. Some smiled, touched by the warmth of the music. Others leaned forward, their expressions filled with awe and admiration. Children whispered excitedly to each other, fascinated by the magic of the sounds. Adults exchanged quiet comments, acknowledging the unexpected beauty of the performance. The woman's music had created a shared emotional space, a moment of connection that transcended age, background, and expectation. The pianist could not resist joining in subtly. He added a few chords here and there, not to dominate, but to complement her melody. The two of them began an unspoken dialogue, a gentle interplay that enhanced the richness of the music. The woman responded intuitively, adjusting her rhythm and intensity in response to his accompaniment. The audience watched in amazement, witnessing a spontaneous collaboration that was both harmonious and emotionally charged. It was a rare moment of musical synergy, born not from rehearsal, but from instinct and shared understanding. As the music reached its peak, the woman allowed herself to become fully immersed in the experience. Her hands moved quickly yet gracefully, navigating complex passages with ease. The notes intertwined, creating a texture that was both intricate and expressive. The crowd could feel the energy of her performance, the way it ebbed and flowed like a living entity. There was a sense of exhilaration in the air, a collective recognition of the extraordinary unfolding before them. Gradually, she began to bring the notes became softer, slower, and more reflective. She allowed the final chords to resonate fully, filling the park with a lingering sense of peace and completion. The audience remained silent for a moment, absorbing the beauty and depth of what they had just experienced. Then slowly, applause began to rise, first tentative, then growing steadily into a wave of appreciation. People clapped, cheered, and smiled, moved by the honesty and skill of the performance. The pianist stepped forward, clapping with genuine admiration. His eyes met hers, conveying respect and amazement. He had challenged her playfully, never imagining that her response would be so profound and moving. The woman smiled softly, acknowledging his recognition without pride or arrogance. She had played not to impress, but to express, and in doing so, she had touched the hearts of everyone present. The crowd began to disperse slowly, some lingering, to talk quietly about the experience, others moving on but carrying the memory of the music with them. The woman stood by the piano, her hands resting gently on the keys, savoring the lingering resonance. The pianist approached, offering a few words of encouragement and genuine admiration. She listened, grateful and humble, aware of the extraordinary connection she had made with the instrument and the audience. As the morning continued, the park gradually returned to its usual rhythm. Children resumed their play, dogs barked and ran, and the sound of distant traffic returned. Yet for those who had witnessed the performance, the memory lingered, a quiet reminder of courage, authenticity, and the unexpected magic of human expression. The woman had accepted a playful challenge, and in doing so, had revealed a profound truth. That talent, when guided by heart and intuition, could create beauty beyond measure, touching lives in ways that formal skill alone could never achieve. The woman's fingers lingered over the piano keys, feeling the vibrations of the last note fade into the morning air. The audience was quiet, suspended in a moment of shared awe. They had witnessed something unexpected, something that transcended mere skill or performance. The music had revealed a side of her that was profound, raw, and entirely human. It was not a display of technical mastery, but an expression of heart and intuition. People felt it deeply, as if she had unlocked a hidden part of their own emotions. Through her playing the pianist stood close, observing every detail. He had issued the challenge lightly, almost playfully, expecting perhaps a brief, hesitant attempt. Instead, she had given him and the crowd a performance that carried more emotional weight than most of the concerts he had played professionally. Her approach was instinctive, guided by feeling rather than technique. There was a natural intelligence in how she moved across the keys, a creativity that could not be taught in any classroom or lesson. He realized that true musical expression often came from authenticity, from the courage to connect with the instrument and let it mirror the inner world. As she continued, the woman began to experiment with subtle variations in tempo and intensity. She shifted the rhythm slightly, allowing some notes to linger longer, while others moved swiftly, as if racing to catch an emotion before it vanished. Each chord, each phrase, carried a depth of feeling that resonated with the listeners. The crowd could sense the narrative in her music, a story that was not written but felt, understood in a shared, unspoken way. Children watched wide-eyed, and adults found themselves caught between admiration and a quiet emotional response. The pianist, who had once challenged her playfully, now felt a profound respect. He could see that she was not just playing the piano. She was communicating through it. Her music spoke of courage, simplicity, and beauty. It carried a sincerity that he knew could not be learned. He had performed countless pieces with technical precision, yet he realized that the emotional impact of her playing far surpassed what he had ever experienced. It was as if she had discovered the soul of the piano, a soul that responded to authenticity and heart rather than training. The woman's melody began to rise, weaving between soft, delicate passages and powerful, resonant chords. Each shift in tone carried an emotion, a subtle story that the audience could feel but could not name. Some felt joy, others a gentle sadness, and many a combination of both. The piano had become a mirror, reflecting the complexity of human experience. The crowd was silent, hanging on every note, fully present in the moment. There was a shared understanding among them. They were witnessing something rare, something that touched the essence of humanity itself. She moved her hands with grace and confidence, exploring the full range of the instrument. The high notes sparkled like sunlight, while the low notes grounded the melody with a sense of depth and warmth. Each movement was deliberate, yet unforced. Her creativity emerged naturally, unbound by formal structure or expectation. The pianist watched in awe as she added small flourishes that enhanced the music without overpowering it. It was a delicate balance, one that only intuition and courage could achieve. The woman paused briefly, allowing a single note to resonate. The silence that followed was powerful, a moment of reflection for both the performer and the audience. The pianist recognized this pause as a mark of her growing confidence. She was not playing to prove anything. She was exploring, expressing, and discovering. It was a lesson in humility and strength, showing that the most profound art often comes from honesty rather than polish. The crowd felt it too, holding their collective breath in admiration and respect. Gradually, she began to layer harmonies, adding subtle depth to the melody. The music became richer, more intricate, yet never forced or artificial. Each chord seemed to emerge organically, a reflection of her inner world. The pianist could see that she had developed an intuitive understanding of musical structure, finding patterns and harmonies naturally, guided by feeling rather than theory. The audience was captivated, drawn deeper into the emotional landscape she was creating. Her music now carried a sense of narrative, a story that moved from gentle contemplation to emotional intensity and back again. She explored minor chords that evoked longing and major chords that conveyed joy. The shifts were seamless, guided by intuition and emotion. Listeners felt as if they were on a journey, traveling through the highs and lows of the story she was telling without a single word being spoken. Children were mesmerized, and adults found themselves quietly moved, some with tears in their eyes, others smiling softly at the unexpected beauty. The pianist could not help but lean closer, curious and inspired by her choices. He realized that she was no longer simply responding to a challenge. She was leading the music, creating an experience for herself and everyone present. There was a brilliance in her instinctive approach, a natural genius that defied conventional understanding. She had taken what was playful and simple and transformed it into something remarkable and profound. Every note she played seemed to echo with authenticity, drawing the audience into a shared experience that felt both intimate and universal. The woman explored faster passages, her fingers moving lightly and confidently, creating a sense of excitement and movement. The crowd was caught up in the energy, following the rhythm and flow of her music. She shifted seamlessly between soft, contemplative notes and vibrant, lively sequences, demonstrating an understanding of contrast and dynamics that went far beyond expectation. The pianist, watching closely, could only marvel at the way she balanced freedom and control, intuition and INTE, NTIONITY. As the melody progressed, she began to create subtle tension in the music, building anticipation with carefully chosen sequences of notes. The audience felt the suspense, the excitement, the emotional pull of the story she was crafting. Children leaned forward, captivated, while adults exchanged glances of wonder and amazement. The park itself seemed to hold its breath, every sound muted, every movement quiet, as if the natural world had paused to witness her talent. The pianist felt a surge of inspiration, recognizing that this moment could never be recreated exactly, that it was a once-in-a-lifetime experience. The woman's music then moved to a more contemplative phase. She slowed her tempo, allowing each note to breathe, to resonate fully. The melody became introspective, carrying a gentle melancholy that was both poignant and comforting. The audience felt the emotion deeply, as if the music were speaking directly to their hearts. The pianist understood that she had discovered the power of silence as well as sound, the beauty of space between notes. Her understanding of musical storytelling was instinctive, intuitive, and profoundly moving. Gradually, she began to bring the melody back to a brighter, more uplifting place. High, sparkling notes danced lightly across the piano, lifting the mood and bringing a sense of resolution. The contrast with the deeper, more reflective passages created a rich emotional journey that left the audience captivated and inspired. Her playing had become a dialogue between light and shadow, between emotion and expression, guiding the listeners through a story that felt both personal and universal. The pianist joined subtly, adding gentle accompaniment that complemented her melody. Their interaction was intuitive, a quiet partnership that enhanced the richness of the music without overshadowing her. She responded naturally, adjusting her rhythm and harmonies to create a seamless collaboration. The crowd watched in amazement, witnessing a spontaneous, unspoken dialogue that revealed the depth of both performers' understanding and sensitivity. It was a moment of rare artistry, born not from rehearsal, but from instinct and shared human connection. As the performance approached its conclusion, the woman slowed her tempo once more. The final notes were soft, deliberate, and lingering, each one carrying weight and emotion. The audience remained silent, fully absorbed in the beauty of the music, reluctant to break the spell. The pianist watched, deeply moved, recognizing that this was not just a performance, but a revelation of human creativity and courage. The woman had answered his playful challenge with authenticity and heart, showing that talent and expression could emerge in the most unexpected ways. When the last note faded into the morning air, there was a brief pause, a collective inhalation from the audience as they processed what they had witnessed. Then, applause erupted, spontaneous and heartfelt, a wave of recognition and appreciation for the beauty and courage they had just experienced. The woman rose from the bench, her hands still resting lightly on the keys, and the pianist joined in, clapping with genuine admiration. There was no pretense, no need for grand gestures, simply a quiet acknowledgement of something extraordinary. The woman looked out at the crowd, her expression calm but proud. She had embraced the challenge with humility and courage, and in doing so, she had revealed a remarkable talent that was both innate and deeply human. The audience continued to applaud, some moved to tears, others smiling in quiet wonder. The pianist approached, offering words of praise and respect, recognizing the unique beauty of her performance. She thanked him softly, her humility shining through, aware of the rare connection she had made with the music, and with everyone present. As the morning carried on, the park gradually retreated. The woman stood quietly by the piano, her hands resting gently on the keys as the applause slowly faded. The morning sun shone brightly, casting long, soft shadows across the park. The sounds of the city began to return, children's laughter, dogs barking, and the distant hum of traffic. Yet, despite the return of ordinary noise, there was a lingering energy in the air. The audience, though resuming their routines, seemed to carry a quiet sense of awe and wonder, as if the music had left an invisible mark on their hearts. The performance had become more than just a moment of entertainment. It had become a shared experience, a reminder of the beauty that could emerge when someone dared to embrace their own potential. The pianist approached the woman, his expression one of genuine admiration. He had issued the playful challenge earlier, expecting perhaps a tentative attempt, yet she had given him and the crowd something far beyond expectation. There was a spark in her playing, a natural connection to the piano that went beyond skill. He had seen many musicians, some trained from a very young age, but few had captured the essence of music with such honesty and feeling. He offered warm smile, acknowledging not only her talent, but the courage it took to accept the challenge without hesitation or fear. The woman returned his smile with a quiet nod. There was no arrogance, no need to seek validation. She had played for herself, and the connection she had formed with the music and the audience was enough. Her journey through the piano had been as much about discovery as it was about expression. Each note she had played was a reflection of her feelings, her intuition, and her willingness to trust herself. The audience had witnessed something rare and human, the unfolding of authentic talent, unpolished but deeply moving God. As the crowd began to disperse, many lingered near the piano, speaking in hushed tones about the performance they had witnessed. Some discussed the emotions it had stirred. Others marveled at the unexpected depth of her music. Children pointed and whispered excitedly to their parents, curious about the magic of the sounds. Adults shared quiet smiles, acknowledging that they had seen something extraordinary. Even the regular visitors of the park, who had grown accustomed to performances in street music, seemed struck by the uniqueness of the moment. It was a reminder that true artistry could arise in the most ordinary settings, from people one might least expect. The pianist stepped back slightly, allowing her to bask in the quiet afterglow of her performance. He reflected on the nature of talent and courage. Many times he had seen performers who were technically perfect, yet somehow lacked the emotional resonance that could touch an audience's heart. In contrast, she had shown that authenticity, humility, and fearlessness could create a connection far deeper than precision or fame. It was a lesson he would carry with him, a reminder of the extraordinary potential hidden within ordinary people. The woman, feeling a sense of calm satisfaction, decided to take a few steps away from the piano, letting others approach and see it for themselves. She walked slowly through the crowd, exchanging soft smiles and brief nods with those who had stayed behind. There was a quiet joy in the air, a shared sense of having been part of something meaningful. The performance had not only showcased her talent, but had also brought people together in a fleeting, magical moment of human connection. For many, it would be a memory they carried with them for the rest of the day, perhaps even longer. As she moved through the park, she noticed small gestures of appreciation from the audience. A parent explaining the music to a child, a couple quietly discussing the emotions they felt, an elderly man shaking his head in awe. These reactions reminded her that her music had reached beyond her own experience. It had touched others, stirred their emotions, and sparked moments of reflection. She realized that sharing one's talent, no matter how simple or unrefined, could have an impact far greater than anticipated. It was a lesson in the power of courage, authenticity, and human expression. The pianist joined her for a brief moment, and they walked together toward the edge of the park. He spoke softly, acknowledging the depth and beauty of her playing. She listened humbly, grateful for the recognition, but not seeking it. The conversation between them was simple, filled with mutual respect and understanding. They did not need words to convey the significance of the morning. The music had already spoken for them both. It had created a bridge, a connection that transcended conventional communication and left both of them inspired and reflective. The morning continued, the city awakening fully now, bringing with it the usual bustle and noise. Yet the memory of the music lingered. The fountain sparkled in the sunlight, the birds resumed their songs, and children's laughter returned, but all carried a subtle echo of the piano's melody. For those who had been present, there was a quiet sense of having witnessed something extraordinary. It was a reminder that magic could exist in ordinary moments, that courage and authenticity could transform simple acts into lasting memories. It was a gift that went beyond the music itself, touching hearts in a way that would not easily fade. The woman paused for a moment by a small bench, observing the scene around her. She reflected on how a simple challenge had led to such a profound experience. It had begun as a playful invitation, a light-hearted test, yet it had transformed into a journey of discovery and expression. She realized that accepting challenges, even without prior preparation or skill, could open doors to experiences she could never have imagined. The piano had become a tool for self-expression, a mirror reflecting her courage and her willingness to engage fully with the present moment. The pianist watched her quietly, recognizing the quiet strength in her demeanor. He understood that her performance had been more than technical or aesthetic. It had been a demonstration of humanity at its most authentic. She had approached the challenge without fear, without pretense, and had allowed her inner world to shape the music. It was a reminder that true talent often lies in those willing to embrace vulnerability, to connect deeply, and to trust themselves. He felt inspired, reminded of the essence of art and its power to move hearts. The park began to empty gradually, the morning giving way to midday. Visitors returned to their routines, some carrying a sense of wonder from what they had witnessed. The woman walked slowly through the paths, reflecting on the impact of her actions. She felt a gentle pride, not in accomplishment, but in having embraced the moment fully. The music had flowed from her heart, reaching others in ways she could not have predicted. It was a lesson in humility and courage, a reminder that sometimes the simplest acts can leave the most profound impressions. The pianist offered a final nod of respect before departing. Their eyes met, sharing an unspoken understanding of what had transpired. No words were necessary. The music and the shared experience had conveyed everything. The woman remained in the park for a few more moments, taking in the environment that had witnessed her transformation. She felt grateful for the challenge, for the opportunity to explore, and for the connections made through the universal language of music. As she finally stepped away, the park returned fully to its ordinary rhythm. Yet for those who had been present, the memory of the music lingered like a soft echo, a reminder of courage, authenticity, and the unexpected beauty that could arise from ordinary people. The pianist continued his day, inspired and reflective, carrying with him the reminder that even small interactions, playful challenges, and spontaneous moments could reveal extraordinary human potential. The morning had begun as any other, with routine and familiar sights and sounds. But it had ended differently, transformed by a simple act of bravery and a willingness to express oneself. The woman had accepted a playful challenge, touched the hearts of everyone present, and created a memory that would linger long after the final note had faded. She walked away quietly, her heart full, knowing that true expression comes from courage, honesty, and the willingness to embrace the unknown. And in that, she had shown something remarkable, that even ordinary people, when given the chance, can create extraordinary moments that leave a lasting impression on the world around them.